sometimes I may feel like I'm in the back burner,
Right.
but it's not really that. It's we're evolving as humans, which is what you're supposed to do.
Right.
So yeah, you're marrying the unknown, and you know, again, like, how do men deal with that? How do women deal with that? So
Right.
it's never a thing where it's just one script, one blueprint. You're
Right.
continuously trying to figure things out, communication, and I want to have real conversations about how people deal with these things.
Yeah.
Today's episode is brought to you by Chula Wear, the largest provider of board shorts, bodybuilding trunks, and briefs in the world. Visit their IG at Chula Styles or their website, teamchulafitness.com.
Yo, we back in the building, Inside the Mind. I am your host, John Reese, and we have Men's Physique Elite in the building today. This episode should have been done, but I'm going to take the blame for that, for my busy schedule. Yeah, man. So, who we got here? My guy has been competing since 2013, consistently up until 2019. He did take an extended period of time off, which is pretty much a benefit to all of us. If you know, you know. He had 2 overall wins as an amateur, 3 national shows, turned pro in 2016 in Pittsburgh at the Teens Masters and Collegiate, competed in 13 pro shows and 2 top 5 placings. My guy, Brandon, in the building. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
And welcome to the pod, man. And like I said, excuse me for the delays on this. You should have been one of the first ones up, but we're here now.
I appreciate it. No, like I said, man, I'm grateful to be here. I'm excited. I've been watching kind of what you've been doing, and I think it's really cool. So
exactly, man. Appreciate it. So going back, you got your start in 2013, but there had to have been, you know, a time before that where you were probably thinking or you got introduced to the sport. What actually got you into the sport of bodybuilding?
what's the saying? Breakups make good bodybuilding.
Hey.
That's basically where it came from, man. I mean, I think, you know, growing up, you know, I think for me, I've always wanted to be a professional athlete. There was always something I wanted to do with sports. I just never could see myself being just the suit and tie guy for the rest of my life. It just wasn't something that I wanted to do. I've spent so many years in the banking and finance industry, and that was my life for a long time. But I've always been in athletics. I've always been in some kind of sport. I grew up playing baseball. I grew up wrestling. Wrestling was kind of my thing growing up. And so transition to bodybuilding was really easy for me just because, you know, cutting weight was just so simple, you know. There's such a mind game to that. And obviously bodybuilding is such a mind game, right? So, but I went through a really bad breakup, man. I went through a really bad breakup, and I got invited out to a bodybuilding show, and I'd been to a couple when I grew up in Alaska. So just so you know that. And so this was back in probably, I want to say 2011 timeframe, 2012. And I remember going to a bodybuilding show. A friend of mine invited me to come out, and I actually had recently just hired a coach to kind of help me with my diet because I was sick of looking up bodybuilding.com and finding the next best diet to do. And, you know, just had never seen results on my own. I'd never seen, you know, I'd never got to that like shredded physique, you know? And so I think as I got older, I was just getting frustrated with it and whatnot. So I'd hired a coach, but I was out at this show and I was like, man, I'm watching these guys in these board shorts, and I'm like, okay, like maybe I could do that, you know? And at the time I was 32, I'm 43 now. So I'm obviously, you know, I'm an elder in this game. So
you're still in your prime, man. Don't worry about it.
For sure. But no, I mean, I went to this show in Alaska, man, and I saw these guys up there competing, and, you know, I was kind of, I was a little bit intimidated, but not in the way that like, you know, like I felt like I couldn't, not that I felt like I didn't belong. It was more like, wow, I was kind of in awe, you know, I was like, wow, these guys are these guys are amazing, you know, like look how crazy these guys look, and they look awesome, look athletic and graceful at the same time, you know. And I was like, man, I kind of want to do this. And a buddy of mine that was there, he was like, he pretty much like right then and there, we kind of made a pact that, you know, that I was gonna jump on stage a year later. And sure enough, man, I sure did, you know. And pretty much it's history from there. You know, I did 5 shows that first year.
Damn.
I was hooked, man. I got on stage, and it was like such the coolest feeling. You know, I mean, I was super nervous right before I jumped on, but I just said to myself, like, dude, it's where you belong. Just jump in, just jump. It's like jumping into a pool, man. And
you did that for sure. It's crazy how our stories is parallel, because I did my first show and ended up doing, I think, 6 my first year. I did 5 local shows, and just chasing the feeling of competitiveness at first.
Yep.
And then I found out you can turn pro probably, I think it was like my 3rd show. And then that was when I placed 3rd like 3 times in a row, like 3rd place, 3rd place, 3rd place, and then finally cracked like a 1st place to qualify. And then I did my national show at the end of the year. Did you have any clue you can turn pro in a sport, or were you just like chasing just being an athlete?
You know, to be honest, man, like I was so, how do I say this, man? So like at the time, UFC was really, really big. And I was a big UFC fan. I mean, UFC is big now too, but I was a huge George St. Pierre fan. And for some reason, I really looked up to him as an athlete and the way he approached his craft. And I liked his mindset of, they were always trying to get him to go fight Anderson Silva, right? And Anderson Silva was a middleweight, right? And so George St. Pierre is a welterweight. So they were always trying to get George to jump up and go to middleweight and challenge Silva for the belt. And the way George saw it was like, no, I need to clean out my house before I go to some other house and try to compete there, right? I got to beat all the guys that are here first. And that's kind of how I felt about turning pro. Like I didn't feel like just because I qualified for nationals that I should just jump on a stage. I felt like I needed to clear out my house. I feel like I needed to become the guy in Alaska at that particular time. And so at the time, Alaska bodybuilding was like, Alaska bodybuilding is really like not, I don't want to say lowered in terms of the level of athlete, because the level of athletes have gotten better over the years, but the amount of athletes have decreased considerably. Like their show, like I went up there last April I went to go see my daughter, but then also I had a client competing. They had 25 competitors in the whole show.
Wow.
25. So like back when there used to be over 100, you know, like I think they averaged around 85 competitors at the time that when I was competing, maybe more. And so it's still not a huge competition compared to like other states and whatnot, but it's Alaska, right? So it's a little bit different. But you know, for me, like it was more or less about beating the guys that I feel like I needed to beat before I decided to go to nationals. Because my thing is like when I first started, I got my butt kicked. I got beat pretty bad. And I wanted to go beat all the guys that beat me. So for me, it was about that first. It was about, let me go beat the guys. Like I'm still that way. I'm still that way too. Like that's just how
you got a hit list, huh?
Bro, listen, you know, like as soon as I get this gut protocol stuff coming, you know, there's guys that I'm absolutely coming for. I'm coming for you, dude. Like I'm coming to get you, period. But that's always how I've been. I've got a huge chip on my shoulder. I've never been somebody that's really expected to do much. And that's okay. You know, like I have the confidence in myself. So it's a little bit different. I don't need the confidence of everybody else. Right. But that's how I saw it, man. Like, you know, the pro card wasn't something that like nowadays that's all you hear guys talk about, right? People put it in their bio, you know, future pro card or future IFBB Pro. You know, I was never something that I was going to do, because to me, I just always saw that as like slightly disrespectful to the guys that were pros.
So let me ask you something talking about that, because I remember when I first seen the IFBB Pro like sweatsuits, right? And after I think it was after the first one, you know how they got the guy in the back selling all the apparel and all that for the vendors. I was getting ready to buy one and I was like, nah, like let me wait until I turn pro. Then I go to my second one and then the third one, and then like it's there, like I want to get it so bad just because like it's something I'm shooting for. But I almost felt like I needed to earn that sweatsuit, earn that logo on my sweatsuit. You see what I'm saying? So I really like relate with that. But I guess my question to you, well, two-part question, because you seem to have a lot of patience when it comes to your process. One, where does that come from? And then two, why do you feel like some of these amateurs that are coming up lack it?
Well, first of all, for myself, man, you know, I know I'm not the most genetically gifted person. Okay. So for me, I have to play to my strengths. My strengths are going to be, my conditioning. My conditioning is always usually very spot on. When you saw me in San Diego, I was off 100%, like very off. That was not typical of what I normally bring. But I was also trying some different things. I wanted to try a couple different things with food. I wanted to try different amounts. I wanted to try different types. So for San Diego was all about collecting data for me. So I was okay with the package that I brought, but I was collecting data. I was honestly trying to come in a little bit bigger. So I was sacrificing the conditioning a little bit to see what that would look like, right? But for me, it's all about bringing the right package, not just stepping on stage, right? And that's something I preach to a lot of my clients. I get a lot of excuse me, I get a lot of like new amateur competitors that reach out that I work with. Most of my clients are lifestyle clients, but I get a lot of like, new amateurs basically, or amateurs that maybe haven't competed in a few years. And I typically hear the same thing. I want to dominate. I want to beat everybody. I want to show up and I want everybody to, I want to beat everybody, whatever, right? I want to win. And I just think that with social media, with the way that it is now, there's so much comparison going on. You have, listen, you have amateurs that look unreal. Now, I don't know if that translates to real life because pictures can be doctored and there's so many editing things that are going on right now. I mean, Goob is nailing like 17 people a day. So, there's so many Photoshop hustlers out there, and that I think that plays a huge role in why people I think are so impatient, this sport is a process, bro. I mean, you think about like when I look at you, right? I think genetic freak. That's what I think.
Wow.
That's what I think. But I also think hard worker, right? I think talent and a hard worker. That's what I look at. That's what I think. When I say genetic freak, I think that like right off the bat, it speaks talent to me. Okay. So
I appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but I also like see humble. I see kind, you know what I mean? I see a genuine dude that is getting everything he deserves. Right. So, and you're a guy that can, in my mind, and we've had this conversation a few different times. You're a guy that could really go far in the sport if you put it all together. Right.
Right.
But you get guys that like see you and they think, well, I want that. And so they think that they're just going to go into a prep and they don't understand the work that it takes. They don't understand the time that it takes. But correct me if I'm wrong. You didn't just wake up looking like you do.
And I don't need to correct you on that because that's accurate. And it's never I woke up and looked like this, to kind of quote
Right.
the little meme thing that was going
Yeah.
around with
Yeah,
Beyonce.
exactly.
But it's one of those things where it's like, all right, I started in 2019. So if I put the before and afters up now, you would understand like all those days in between led to this.
Mhm.
It wasn't, oh, I started 6 months ago and then boom, and I wanted to turn pro. Like, we all want to turn pro. I get it. But again, if anyone can learn from anything what you just said, like the patience, the process, like everyone's process is different. But the one thing you can't rush is your timing.
Yep.
Your body's going to tell you when you need to get to a certain point. Not because you're looking at it and you want to rush it. It's never that. And you're right. Social media plays a huge part in that.
Yeah, I know. I feel like that's something that we all can be, victim to, right? Meaning
Mhm.
it's very easy to look at the people that you maybe look up to or the competitors that you're going to compete against, um, and feel like you're falling behind, right? You're like, oh man, I'm falling behind. I mean, I'm going through some of that right now. I'm going through this gut protocol. We've had to really pull food back. Um, we've really dialed things back. Training is only 3 days a week. And so sometimes I'm like, man, like I feel like I'm just falling behind. But you try to find the joy in like some of the success that you are having, right? Like I'm leaning out, abs are coming back, right? Start to feel like my old self in a way because I know I'm starting to look more aesthetic, right? And so you find the positives in things, but I think a lot of guys, man, they get it, they get frustrated because maybe they feel like they're falling behind and they feel like prep is going to bring them back. And so
Mm.
they don't understand the patience part of it. Like the growth season is way more important than your prep. you know
Yeah, like okay, so like because you're touching on these, I was literally just talking to a few of my clients about
Mhm.
that, how you actually need to treat your off season, improvement season, excuse me, as if you're still in prep. Like nothing really changes, and I only can say this now because it took me 3-4 years to figure it out. Like I'm not perfect, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? But
100%.
it's just one of those things where it's just like, all right, now is not the free time to just go off track. This
Yep.
is when you're actually building what you're going to present the next time you step on stage. So my question to that is the mental side of it, because when you're in improvement season, you start to put on weight, you're putting on body fat, and you're starting to
Yep.
look a certain way. Like, what is your, well, one, how do you handle that? And then two, like, what is your advice to people who struggle with losing their stage body due to improvement season?
So this is one of the things that that was actually I actually not that long ago I did a talk on it, but I was gonna do one again either today or tomorrow.
Gotcha.
But you need to have a healthy balance of grace and accountability. You can't be over accountable and you can't be over gracious. And the reason being is because, I've got some clients that are going through some really difficult times, struggling,
Hmm.
right? They're going through, like, I've got some clients that are going through life changing events that most people would be like, screw it, I'm done. I'm not doing this right now. I don't have time. My life is flipped upside down.
Hmm.
But they're still here. They're still trying. They're still going after it. And for me, like I look at that and I'm like, that's perseverance, that's dedication, that's discipline, that's self-love. Like those are all really good things, right?
Hmm.
Um, but there's also over she's over gracious in her situation, right? Meaning she's very happy that she's here. She's very happy she's trying. She's proud of herself because she's still here.
I got you.
The thing of it is, she lets this thing that's going on, understandably, right? It's a tough situation, but she lets it control her in a way that whenever she gets overly stressed from it, whenever it's just too much, she goes to her vices. She indulges on food, or she skips
Hmm.
training, or she sleeps more than she should. The discipline goes out the window, but then she's like, but I'm still here and I'm trying.
You can't have it both.
The thing is like, no, like, I understand. Yes, give yourself grace. Where were you a year ago, right? What did you do a year ago? What did you do? How would you have reacted a year ago, right? There's more to this fitness game than just how you look, right? But her and I will still touch on that too, because we're like, I'll tell her, be like, listen, remember the way you looked a year ago. Like, you still look amazing despite not being perfect on your plan comparatively to a year ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we still got to hold you accountable. There's that piece. So you have to be able to hold yourself accountable too, right? So you got to have a healthy balance of it. But if you're over accountable, right? If all she did was like shit on herself all day long because she's not sticking to the plan, that's just going to drive her into depression, and like she's going to be comparing herself to everybody else. You can't have one out of whack. They have to be made.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't think about that. Like, I've never really heard anybody talk about that much, to a point where you really try to teach people to have a healthy balance of both, right?
Today's episode is brought to you by ChulaWear, the largest provider of board shorts, bodybuilding trunks, and briefs in the world. Visit their IG at Chula Styles or their website, teamchulafitness.com.
Well, my question, the episode I just did before this, they literally said there is no balance. What do you say to that? Because there's a lot of people that are pros that say, if you're in search of balance, go find something else to do.
So listen, I think that might be a different context, right? Like, I think like the idea is, yes, there are a lot of pros, right? When we're talking about Olympians, when we're talking about guys that are winning pro shows, we're talking about the top 5 Olympians, right? We have to also remember, like, some of these guys are so genetically gifted. So the playing field's not the same, right? Like, we got to think about it. We got to be realistic, right? The playing field is not identical, okay? Because when we're talking about the general public, because that's the majority.
Right.
The elite is not the majority. So we got to be like realistic with that whole, like, there is no balance. Don't get me wrong. I've been one that said that before. I've been one and I still believe in that in a way, like partially, not 100%. I tell my clients a lot of the same things. No one that's ever been successfully elite believed in having balance. There's no balance to them. We have to understand that. Like, if you want to be elite in whatever that you want to do, it doesn't matter what it is. There is no balance. There's no balance because you are 100% all in, all eggs in that basket. That's what you're going to go do.
Right.
Now, take a tattoo artist, for example, right? There are tattoo artists that are really good at one thing, and there are tattoo artists that are really good at a bunch of things. The ones that are really good at one thing have no balance. The ones that are really good at a bunch of things have a lot of balance.
That's a great way of putting that.
They're able to be well-versed at those things. So you look at guys, for example, women that have a successful relationships, they're successful in their careers, but they're also bodybuilders. They understand how to have balance, right? And when I say that they're bodybuilders, they're also somewhat successful as well. They may not be top 5 Olympians, right? I don't know. I mean, Ryan Terry, I would say, is pretty dang successful. Right?
Hey, yeah.
and I mean, he's been successful for a really long time. You know what I mean? So I would be willing to say that he's probably found a way for himself to have some balance. And we have to understand that balance is relative. One person's balance is not balanced to the next person. And it goes the other way too, right? So we have to understand, like, it's the playing field is different, right? Like, for example, I've always looked at myself as not genetically elite. So if I want the same results as you, I got to outwork you like 4 times to get half the results that you do.
Sheesh.
And so for me, I know that, right? So I have no problem admitting to myself, like, hey, looking at myself in the mirror and saying, hey, Brandon, dude, if you want the same results as John, same results as Andre, you want to have delts like Corey Morris, dude, you're going to have to go freaking work 20 times harder than these dudes. And if you're not willing to do that, don't expect to sniff the level of success that they've been able to reach. And some people aren't willing to be honest with themselves in that, right? And that to me is what you have to be able to do. You got to be realistic with yourself. You can't lie to yourself. This sport, dude, it's like baseball. Like you can't fake being good at it. You're either good at it
No.
or you're not. Like you can't fake it, you know? And there's just certain things that you can't fake in this life. And you either are somebody who wants it or you don't. And you have to also remember, like, again, being honest with your genetic potential. Like what are you capable of doing?
I think that's a lost aspect in the sport. Like people forget until like when how you're talking about it now. Genetics is such a huge component to what we do. There, like you said, there are some that are just incredibly genetically gifted, and then
Mhm.
there's some that are not. So, like, I'll talk about me being like a heavy set kid who loves sugar and so much and so forth.
Yeah.
Some of those things that I did as a kid comes back and haunts me all the time. So when I get in off season or improvement season, like it's so easy for me to put on weight.
Mhm.
Like I can smell food and weight just finds me right around the midsection. It just
Sure.
is what it is. So, like you said, play to your strengths and
Mhm.
understand that because the like bodybuilding, a lot of the stuff that we go through is on the mental side. So if I'm looking at my body in improvement season, I'm like, man, I don't like this. It can mess with me bad to the point where I'm just like, you know what, I'm gonna go get in another prep, and then that's gonna mess it up even worse.
Mhm.
Like, you see what I'm saying? So
And that's
you
what a
have
lot of
to
people
be
do.
there you go. You have to be mentally in check with yourself, in tune with yourself to kind of understand like the ebbs and flows. And like you said, understand like the genetics, it's not an even playing field for no one. So in order to even it out, you got to do the work. You got
Yep.
to do your studying, follow your diet, like all that stuff matters. So, but
Mhm.
I want to pivot just a little bit because I remember you was talking about your gut protocol. Me and you were both pretty much going through that.
Mhm.
And I want to get your take on how you're actually handling the mental side of that as far as when we take a rest, it's more most of the time it's by choice. But this
Mhm.
time it's not necessarily a choice for you. And it wasn't a choice for me because I wanted to compete.
Yep.
So how do you handle that side when your mind may be telling you like, man, I just want to go. Like you're watching shows, you're watching the schedule come out. I know when the schedule come out, I start circling everything. Like I'm going to like 30 million shows, knowing I'm probably only gonna do like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But when you're forced to kind of, hey, I have to take this step back, like
Mhm.
how do you deal with that?
It's been a process, man. I'm not gonna lie. It's definitely, like I just said a minute ago. How balance is relative. You know,
Mhm,
the things that are hard on you. That word hard is relative too, right? What's hard for you might be easy for me, and what's hard for me might be easy for you, right?
mhm,
So it's been an interesting process, but it's just like anything that we might tell our own clients, right? As well, like trust the process, trust what we're doing, trust what we're trying to get done. Um, Unfortunately, the first time I went through my gut protocol, nothing really worked. I mean, it did heal some things, but like for the most part, most of my infections that were there are still there. Um, and that's after antibiotics too. So it's just like
mm.
body does not want to release whatever it's doing. It's like, nah, like, sorry, bro, it's not gonna work.
It's
Um,
crazy.
so it's just one of those things like you're kind of like, you're wondering if this is gonna be real life forever. Is this gonna get fixed? Is this gonna change? um and I think that's the part that you know I try not to let the negative crawl in and creep in too much. Um, it's not an easy process though. It's not one of those things where it's like I just wake up smelling roses and I'm like, yeah, this is great, you know. But what I can say is like, you know, when you do see, you know, when you do see some progress in the gym, when you do see progress in your physique, when you do start to feel a little bit better, right? I mean, because you know, for all intents and purposes, there are improvements that are being made. And again, I think it's a matter of paying attention to those things more so than the negative pieces. You know, I think again, man, it depends on how you look at life. What's your perspective? You know, do you look at things from a glass as half full or a glass as half empty? Or
Mhm.
or do you look at the glasses as it's full as full as you want it to be? Right? Like and what I mean by that is just in the sense of like who cares if the glass is half full or half empty? It's full all the time. Think about people that you know, because I know a lot of people that are like this. But think about people that you know that literally live moment to moment, right? So if things are going well, life is awesome. If
Mhm.
things are not going well in that moment, life sucks. But I've never been that person. I've always been a person that's like life is good no matter the moment. So maybe in the moment things aren't great, but like life is still good. Like I still wake up, it's sunny outside. I have money in my bank account. I got a roof over my head. I got plenty of food in the fridge. Not worried about, you know, somebody putting papers on my door telling me to get out of my house. You know what I mean? I don't have cops coming in to my doorway, you know, trying to break things down.
Right.
You know, back in the day, a lot of people don't know this, but back in the day, I lived at a I was in the middle of of homes at the time. And this is way before bodybuilding. But I was roommates with a buddy of mine for a brief like maybe 6 months or whatever it was. It wasn't very long.
Mhm.
But he was a drug dealer. Um,
Whoa.
and so like that's not something I was ever involved in. I wasn't part of it. I didn't do drugs. It's not anything that I do or mess with.
Mhm.
But I would have literally people knocking on my window asking for my buddy and where he was because they wanted to buy stuff from him. You know, and I look back at that and I'm like, man, I don't live in that home anymore. You know, and so my life is very different now. You know what I mean? It's very different. You know, I'm not like, you know, I'm not here to brag or anything like that, but you know, I live a comfortable life. You know, I live a good life. I'm happy with where I'm at and where I'm going, and I've worked hard for it. You know, and so for me to, you know, to cry about, you know, going through this gut protocol and oh my god, I can't compete right now. And I mean, because I could compete, I could just be like, cool, let's jump into prep, and you know, maybe my body will respond and maybe it won't. Um, but to be honest, man, it's just one of those things where I just look at it as it's just another thing I've got to do. It's another hurdle. It's another journey, another piece, another part of the trail I got to go down to get to where I want to be. And that's just life, man. I've experienced so many things like that where it's like, got to take a detour. We got to go this way right now, and we got to work hard through this. And then once we're out, we'll be onto something new, onto something else.
That's
So
dope to think of it like that. And so I give you guys context. So me and Brandon was going through pretty much like gut protocol stuff at the same time, but I reached out to him as far as who I should reach out to. And I consult with Brandon a lot about like whether I'm feeling mentally, where my body's at, you know, stuff like that. Just because one, he's genuine, I trust his insight, and most importantly, he's not one of the fake ones that you may see lurking around, you know, the league or whatever the case is. But you know, for me, I had the exact opposite of mindset as far as what he's talking about now. I was such in a rush to get out of that protocol. Like, I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to face it. I was just trying to hurry up and fix it. Or
yeah,
I was just going to jump into another prep just because I was so, I guess, impatient to just want to do another pro show after what happened at my last one.
right.
So, Yeah, I owe you a huge thank you for one leading me to, the people who helped me, fix my gut protocol, but I just actually being a voice to be like, be patient. Like it
Yeah.
ain't going nowhere. So
Well, that was the thing for me that, again, and I mean everything I'm saying, like I truly think that you have like such a great look. Um, and you could really do some damage, man. Like you could be a name in this industry. I really believe that. And so for me, it was like, dude, get this thing fixed so your body responds in the best way it possibly can. Because when you have gut issues, man, like, dude, there are so many things. Like it's crazy, like as for myself, as peeled as I was for my Arizona show, which was before San Diego, and I was super, super dry.
yeah, she was.
But what I will say is I was drier probably 3 weeks prior to the show, 2 weeks prior to the show, between 2 and 3. I don't know what happened the last few weeks. Can't even explain it. But I had noticed that there was like a little film in my skin and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I still don't know. That this is all theory to me, but I think that it absolutely I think something played a role with I think my gut played a role in that.
Mhm.
Um, when I got my blood work done after San Diego was done, right? My estradiol was astronomically high. Like I have
Mm.
never seen any one of my clients or anybody that's ever reached out for a consultation for me to look at their blood work. I've never seen anybody's estradiol this high in my entire life. My
Damn.
estradiol was 247. 247. That's on. No, listen. And I was only using testosterone propionate, so I was on propionate, man. Like that's
Right.
like you're supposed to have like the least amount of estrogen with propionate,
Exactly.
and I wasn't taking a large dose. I was only taking 400 milligrams a week. So why in the world was my estradiol so high? You know what I mean? And that comes from the inflammation, right? So that when your body is more inflamed, your estradiol typically will be higher because it acts as a protectant. It's basically trying to heal you, essentially, right? So,
Mhm.
um, so when I remember talking with Matt, who's over at Rise, right? And so
Mhm.
I'm talking with Matt, and he's like, "Yeah, dude, your estradiol is way high because it's trying to protect you from whatever's going
Whatever's
on
going on.
in your gut." And so that to me explained where maybe the water was coming from or that film over my stomach. I mean, it's not that I don't think I looked bad, but I definitely was like, man, I know I'm definitely leaner than I've ever been right now. And I still don't feel as dry. It's very strange. Um, so that was a huge mental battle for me, at least. I know that was hard to like get by. But the point I'm trying to bring up is like, as good as you can be, right? You don't want anything to hold you back from what your potential could be, right? And so that's why I was
Mhm.
so like, dude, you've got to get this taken care of. Go talk to these guys because the potential is there. You just need to get these things fixed so that way your body responds in the best possible way because you have all the tools. They're there.
And thank you, man. Appreciate it. And I believe it was like a perfect storm, believe it or not,
Mhm,
because I believe I hit you at the beginning of 2023. And
mhm,
that's when I started, I hit up Matt. And then that was right when I was on the fence about possibly taking the year off anyway.
mhm.
And then boom, the schedule comes out. I'm like, nope, I'm not. Where are we going? But I'm still in.
I
I'm
remember that.
still in the middle. I promise you, the message I sent to Matt when I was talking to him, I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna try to go up in the summer if I can get this fixed, so on and so forth. And
Mhm,
then like I did the whole like stool test and all this other stuff, and yeah, the results I got back definitely wasn't what I wanted to see. And
mhm,
then it was one of those things. It was like, you know what? Yeah, I think I'm gonna end up possibly taking a year off, but then I actually talked to you about it, And that's when he was like, dude, like just wait, let it clear out, and you can continue to build while you're doing so, if possible. And I was like, yeah, the stage ain't going there. Sometimes like we, even as pros, like we need to hear that, not even necessarily from our coach or even from like family members. It's just like people who are like-minded and going through the same things that we're going through. Like you need to hear that from them.
I
So
mean, you have to hear. I mean, listen, I'm right. Like, I want to talk, but I feel like I can't say it better than what you just said. You want to hear from the people that that just know, right? That know the sport, that understand the sport, that have seen the guys that have come and that have come into the league. And your physique is very similar to, like, to me, your physique is very similar to an Emmanuel.
mm,
Like, very similar. Like, your guys' back is kind of similar. Your fronts are kind of similar. You're both very aesthetic. You have a very, very clean aesthetic look. And so, um, I mean, we've talked briefly about like what I think what you could do, what you should do.
absolutely. Hmm.
And I mean, with that year of like just taking some time and healing your gut, but also continuing to grow at the same time. And I mean, because you're probably not going to grow as effectively as you'd like because of the issue with the gut, right? But you can still probably pack on some muscle, right? Um, but doing that, right, that's only going to set you up better. Jumping on stage isn't going to get you there any faster, right? The off season that you're going to take, though, and fixing your gut, that's going to get you to where you want to be much faster than jumping on stage. Jumping on stage is going to be a setback. And a lot of guys, they don't get that. They think that jumping on stage is going to get them to the next level. And they just don't realize, like, jumping on stage as often as you do typically is more of a setback than what you think.
Man, all the time. And I'm so glad I didn't, bro. And even right now, like, so I'm 12 weeks out. Even right now, like, if I had to pull the plug, it's so easier for me to pull the plug now. Like, oh
Mhm.
no, we can wait, because I
Yep.
I found a newfound passion and love for like just my process of growing and being patient and knowing like, okay, the cutting part is easy.
Mhm.
Well, again, okay, that's relative too. Sorry, it ain't easy for everyone.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry,
Don't
but
say that out loud, man.
yeah, I can't say
You're
that out
down.
loud. But me personally, I don't have a problem with eating low food because I typically I don't have to eat a lot of food to grow. So this is where my childhood actually comes into play as a pro. It's not a con. Like I don't need a lot of food to grow. So when my food is low during, when it's time to cut, I feel right at home. Like I'm
Mhm.
like, cool. Like my energy, yeah, it may go down from time to time, but I'm not starving like some people may talk about. I'm not hurting like some people may talk about. I mean, I crave. If you look at my story today, I posted some stuff that I bought for after my season. Now, am I going to eat it all in one day? Absolutely not. But this is this is going to be one of those things where you know I typically will eat after season. Every now and then. I'm gonna pause you real quick, Brandon, because you froze up. I don't know if you see that.
No.
Oh, there we go. Never mind. We good. You woke
Okay.
up. We good.
Okay.
Yeah, but for the most part, man, it's just I'm happy about where I'm at now. I take your words to heart, and I just want to pretty much be presentable. And it's not, of course, we all want to win, but I'm just enjoying the process. And if I got to go through the process longer, I'll do it. Like I don't have no problem with that. And that's just based off talks that I had with you. So like I said, man, I owe you a huge thank you, man.
No, man. I mean, I just appreciate the opportunities to talk, man, and and be able to have that kind of an impact. You know what I mean? I think that's like the big thing for me is I think most people get in the sport, right? They want to win shows, they want to get a pro card. And don't get me wrong, dude, winning a show is probably one of the best feelings you're ever going to feel in your entire life. Like, like when you win a show, dude, it's the most amazing feeling ever. I remember the last show that I won, I could hear my daughter in the audience, yelling, "Go daddy," things like that. It's like
That's what's up.
probably one of the best memories I'll ever have. You know what I mean? And but it's the impact that you have on people. I know for me, that's what drives me more than anything. It's the impact that you have on people. Like, I could care less for being remembered as, he gets peeled, or, he was one of the better guys that came out of Alaska, whatever. Like, I could care less about any of that. I'm more so about, how did I impact you? Did I impact you positively? Did I say something that pissed you off but made you realize like what you have underneath your skin and who you are to your core, and it picked you up off the ground and it made you motivated to go kill life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd rather be remembered for how I impacted you in a way that made you want to move, you know? And so us as bodybuilders, like, we have a duty to be respectful to the sport and honor the sport the way that it's meant to be. But understanding that there's so many people out there that look up to us, and it's our duty to provide the right kind of impact. And so, yeah, it's great to win shows. It's awesome to be in that top call out. For a lot of us, man, if we make it in that top call out, or if we make it in the second call out, and we can kind of squeeze our way into the top call out at night show, like, that's a win for a lot of us. A lot of us are very happy with that. You know what I mean? And that's, I mean, listen, everybody has their own thing. Again, it's all relative to the person, but like, how did you represent yourself? How did you represent the sport? How did you represent the people that follow you? How did you represent your family? Like, how are you impacting the sport? What are you doing for the sport? What are you doing for the people that are there watching you? How are you going to be remembered? And to me, that's way bigger than winning and getting a trophy and a check and all that stuff. Because, I mean, let's be honest, they don't pay us anything. We got to pay to play. So
exactly, I tell people that all the time, man.
I mean, we turned pro, like, people. I remember when I first turned pro, I had some people reach out and they're just like, "So you have like all these sponsors coming after you now, and like all these people trying to pay you?" And I'm like, "Dude, we ain't playing football. Okay, it doesn't work the same way, man." But I did want to ask you a question. So I wanted to ask you. You mentioned, you're going through your cut, right, and things like that. Like, that's like the easy part for you.
Mm-hmm.
What's your mindset, man, when you're going into a prep? What's the thing that drives you?
So that's a great question, actually, because that mindset has actually changed this prep, and I'm actually going to start cutting in 2 weeks. So I'm slowly transitioning over into that. So I'll answer for both sides. So before, it was just like, all right, we're getting ready to start this cut. You're going to go through a lot of different emotions, whatever the case is. I don't necessarily stare at the food aspect of it. I stare at this more of the time sacrifice I have to make. So I have these talks with my wife. I have these talks now. My daughter's old enough to kind of understand. So before my last prep, she was she was turning 2. So she really kind of didn't understand. But those who are around me, I'm not going to be around as much because there's so many things I got to do. So what actually drives me, though, is, okay, if I get to this task and I do it, no matter how much I may not want to do it within that moment, I know I'm better, and I have to be better every day. And it's a mind game. I tell myself, yo, if I don't go do this, I'm behind. Now, you were just talking about that, but that actually fuels me. I don't never want to feel like I'm behind. So I always try to, all right, it's a challenge. Like, if I tell myself, like, yo, if you got to be to work at 6, the only way you're going to be able to do your cardio is getting up at 4. So there is no choice in that. So I eliminate the choice factor, and it's not non-negotiables. Like you have to
Right.
get up. So
Yep.
the game is okay. If you go, you won. You won that moment. So it's all about winning moments. That's what it was. Like I have to win these moments of these non-negotiables.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I played the game day in and day out. Like, oh, calories in versus calories out. You might see me post that in, and I'll be like, oh, I know I pushed out way more calories than I took in today. We good. And it's like the game. I literally will celebrate these little minor victories. Like I'll get in my car after my cardio, be like, yes, we won. Thank God. Now I can go home and get ready to go to work. And I celebrate those little moments daily.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all a mind game for me. But this time around, I'm not even really paying attention to the finish line. I'm not paying attention to like not even the food, because even right now my food is lower than usual. But I was literally telling my coach this yesterday. She was like, how you feeling? I said, I feel like January 27th was successful. She was like, what? And I was like, I feel good, but I can't get to April 20th until the 27th is over. I feel like we're successful at this moment, and I feel like we're getting better. And once this day is over, the mantra I have is one day better. So I get to the night. Did I do everything I was supposed to do? Okay, cool. We're one day better. And then when I wake up, all right, 27th is over. What do I have to do on the 28th? And if I do everything I'm supposed to, then I can make it to the 29th. It's literally one step at a time, because typically during cuts, people's like, oh my God, I got to do 8, 10, 12 weeks of this. I'm not going to be able to get to this pizza. I can't go to Disneyland. I can't go do this. I can't do that. Even if you weren't cutting, you can't do that until you set the date.
Yeah.
So what's the like, and that's where I had to like transition to, because for the last prep, and like I told you, I did that prep in 10 weeks. I will never do that again, where I dropped 30 pounds in 10 weeks. That was just ignorant as hell.
That's rough. It's
But
rough.
yeah, it was. And surprisingly, I did it, but it was like that before. Like I just have to win, 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 win. Now it's just like, okay, say I don't complete a task, like a meal skipped, which that rarely happens, just whatever. I have to keep my emotions in check, because that can be a double negative. Because now cortisol, stress, all that, you might want to go force feed, and like, no, like you said, it's real. Okay, if I missed it, all right, it's not the end of the world. It's really not. Like we strive to be perfect, but before, that strive for perfection used to bother me if I wasn't perfect. Now it's more like, okay, well, you got another opportunity to get better the next day.
Right.
Like, don't slip, don't make it consistent mess up. So that's having these mantras to answer your question is what makes it easy. Like I don't,
You stay even keel. You're very
yeah,
balanced.
I really try to.
Very balanced. You're not like over the top when you win the day, and you're not like worried if you don't.
And that's what works for me, because beforehand, it wasn't an even kill. Like I may display it on the outside, but on the inside, I'm like, man, like I can't be skipping meals, or I didn't get enough water. I remember one time, bro, I was so behind on my water one day. I literally chugged 3/4 of a gallon of water an hour before I went to sleep. Stupid. Now, if anyone knows this,
That's the worst thing.
that's the worst thing you can do,
Yeah, no, I don't do that.
for two reasons. Like you're gonna hold most of that in, and you may be up all night pissing.
Yeah.
So like, nah, I
Expect
don't.
to sleep.
Thank you. So thank you. 3, sleep is jacked up. You're
Yeah.
probably up every 45 minutes going to the bathroom, just because your filtration system wants to be enhanced at this time,
Yeah,
and
your
you got
body
to
wants
get
to
all that
keep
stuff
up.
out. So
Yeah.
yeah, even kills are actually a good phrase to use, man. I'm just like, and then I try to, before like doing shows, like, oh, I wonder who's going. Let me check this. Let me, no, whoever shows up, shows up.
Yep.
I have to control me. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's a big show, small show, like every show is big to me. That's how I'm about to perceive it. Every show is big to me, whether it's local, New York Pro. If I'm blessed enough to go to Arnold or Olympia, yeah, those are huge shows, of course, but every show is big to me. Why? Because I care enough for me. Yeah, my goal is to crack, first call out. That's the first goal. The first goal is not even to win, it's to crack the first call out. And then we'll see where we go from there. That's a success for me, just like you said. So one day better is the mantra, man, this time around.
I like it, man. I think everybody has to find their own thing. Like what is it that's going to motivate you to stay on plan, to stay on task, to work hard, to not give in, to not, cheat on the diet, to not skip your training or your cardio. What's going to keep you in the game, and everybody's different. I think it's all, I always, like asking different guys, like what is it that they do? Like, what is it that keeps them, in it? I've always viewed it as like a fight. I've always viewed it as like a fight.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think growing up as a wrestler, I think like I've always looked at my preps as like a training camp for a fight. That's just how I've always looked at it. So for me, I've always viewed it as those guys are training to take my head off, and I'm training to take their head off. Obviously it's a little bit different, right? It's not a fight because it's just not the way that it works. And the judging it's not like we can't score takedowns, we can't knock the guy out to win. It doesn't work that way. I mean, imagine if there was like a secret pose that all you had to do was like hit it just right, and the judges went, "Oh, there it is, he wins."
If it was like that, yeah, it'd be a different story.
There's no way to do that, right? You can't hit a game-winning 3-pointer, and it doesn't work that way. But for me, it's always just been, I trained as if I was gonna be walking into the cage and fighting somebody,
And that's pretty much your background too, because
that's honestly, bro. Like coming up as a wrestler, I developed kind of like I want to call it like killer instinct. Like you just wanted to go in there and rip the dude's head off. Like you either have that or you don't. And so like, that's how my training has always been. People always think I'm like pissed off in the gym, and I'm not, but it's just because I train with aggression. I train serious. I train, that way. And that's the way I approach my prep. It's the way I approach my thought process in terms of sticking to my plan. Making sure that I eat all the food I'm supposed to eat. I don't deviate off of that, for me, it's always just like I turn on a switch when prep starts and I turn it off when prep is over, And so that's just the way I've always approached it. I think that's why off seasons are so difficult for me, or why they have been in the past, because I never understood that like you can't really turn your switch off in the off season, And so like my off seasons in the past used to struggle, like I would really struggle with food. I'd want to eat everything and anything in sight. And, like I love food, like absolutely love food, love it, man. Like I will smash, bro. If you saw some of the things that I used to eat, I've got pictures I could show you. This was during COVID, and this is back when the shows were like all jacked up, right? So that year I was only doing photo shoots. I wasn't actually competing. And so I was like, I remember I was cutting down. I wanted to be in the best shape of my life at 40, right? I was turning 40. So I was like, I want to do a really cool photo shoot at 40 years old, which I did. And it was awesome. And I was so lean. I was like, we might as well look into a show. Like we're peeled. And at the time they had the Battle in the Desert out here in Vegas.
They need to bring that back. But go
they
ahead.
do need to bring it back 100%. So I agree with you. But that year, because of COVID, they moved it to, was it
Sacramento?
No, they moved it to Texas. Marcos.
Oh, true. That's right.
They moved out to Texas. And I was like, I'm not flying to Texas to go do this show. Because that's the show that I was going to do. And then I was going to do a San Diego show right after that, and they canceled that one. So the Marcos, Texas one got canceled. No, I think that I can't remember if they still had it or not, but I know the one in San Diego got canceled. So I didn't get to do any shows that year. So when I found out that the shows were canceled and I had already reached my photo shoot goal, I was like, okay, well, we're just going to go ham on some food now. And I got this island out in the kitchen. And at the time, it was just me, right? So I had that whole island covered with food, with just stuff. And it was just for me. And I smashed food for like 2 days. And I mean, I was so sick, but I still had fun. You know, I enjoyed it.
Right.
That's like those were like that's the danger. The dangerous part about the sport too is you have cheat meals are so glorified. You know.
Oh my God.
That's all you hear people talk about, man, is like, what's your cheat meal? What's your go-to cheat meal? Like, what do you like to eat in the off season? And
I can't even post mine no more, bro. I swear the Instagram police, they find you like, oh, you get to do this. Why, you know what? I ain't posted one in 2 years, bro. I promise. Well, probably less, but yeah, it's been
bro,
a while.
I'll be straight with you, man. Like, since the gut protocol stuff, man, like I could give a crap about a cheat meal. Don't get me wrong, I still have a cheat meal here and there, but I don't glorify it like I used to. I just look at it so differently now. And to be honest, man, I don't have like crazy cravings like I used to either. Doesn't mean that I don't, but they're not as bad as they used to be. And I think because, you know, growing up, you know, when I look back at my life when I was growing up, I realized that my gut issues have existed since I was in high school.
Wow.
I mean, this is like the weirdest thing. And it's maybe weird to admit, but like, bro, I barely have any gas at all. Like now, like I'm almost like halfway grossed out when somebody says the word fart. Like, I think it's a gross word. But anyways, the point I'm trying to say is like, I don't even have gas very often, bro. Like, it's the weirdest thing because as a young kid, I was known for having really bad gas. And now I barely have any, like, at all. And if it stinks at all, that's like, it's because I ate something that I shouldn't have eaten.
That's a sign that
Other than that, like, I don't really have gas. And so, like, for me, the way that my gut functions now, I'm more about like, I want to eat food that's going to allow my gut to function how I want it to function. Cause I'm much more like excited to feel good than to eat that over there that might make me feel good for that moment. You know, doesn't mean I'm not going to indulge, but I just don't really have the desire, you know. And then on top of it, you see guys like Medi who freaking wins a show and then directly after the show heads to his hotel, eats his chicken and rice. This is right after a show, eats his chicken and rice, drinks his pre-workout, and then goes hits a leg day. And you're like, and everybody else that took second and below is at Cheesecake Factory or whatever, eating whatever cheat meal. Medi just won the damn show, and he's like, "Yep, I'm gonna go hit a leg day."
Did different mindset, bro. I reached out to him, so I'm hoping to get him on to actually talk about that.
He's
and
a
just
good one,
his
man.
whole approach.
He would be Medi's a good dude. I've known Medi for a long time as well. Medi's an OG. A lot of people don't realize that. Medi's been around for years. Man. And he's been around for a really long time.
He's the antithesis of like what we're talking about, like the whole mindset, the mantra, and for him to do that, like, and it's so fun. I think about food before or after the show, but again, the choice is okay, eat it or not eat it. After the pro debut, I kind of what you said, I was so mad about the results. When I tell you, I wanted the whole thing was eating pizza with my daughter because it was her birthday.
Sure. I remember that. You talked about that in the lineup.
Right. And then I get the BJ's, bro. I swear it felt like I ordered the whole left side of the menu. Like, I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna take a salad only because that's healthy. Give me the Caesar salad, but I want boneless wings. I want those in the salad. You can bring those out first. Oh, give me the flatbread. Oh, get like, bro. Even my wife was like, dude, that's enough. Like, I was just eating with my eyes.
Yep.
I was up till 4 o'clock in the morning on the side of the bed belching. All cause like it was ridiculous, bro. And I was like, I'll never do that again. Never. But
I did
I
a
want
show out in Sacramento, and I remember my parents came out and saw me, and right after I got off the stage, I wanted to have one of these protein bars that I bought. I was like, it was on my backpack, so I asked my sister. I was like, hey, can you grab that protein bar out of my backpack? And I was on my back, and so she went to unzip it. My mom goes, oh, I brought you some of your cake. My mom typically will make me a cake right after a show. Usually, if she's coming to my show, she's making a cake for me. So my favorite cake in the world is rainbow chip icing cake, and so she made me she made me a cake, brought a slice to the show. So I ate a slice of cake on the way back, right? And then we already had all of the goodies back at the Airbnb waiting. So the pizza was there, the donuts were there, the ice cream was there, whatever, right? I mean, I loaded up on every possible thing you could think of. And I had to eat it in one night because we were leaving the next day. So anyways, we're on the way back to the Airbnb. We're walking to the car, and there's a little convenience store inside the parking garage. And so walk in the convenience store, and I was like, oh, I want some sodas for my pizza. So I bought like, I don't know, 8 or 9 20-ounce sodas. Now at this time, I haven't drank like a real soda in forever. And I normally drink diet soda. I don't know why I bought real sodas that night. I have no idea why I did, but I did. I drank 1 strawberry Fanta inside the convenience store. I was so thirsty. Like right there, I opened it up at the little door. I chugged it. Got in the car, drank a Sprite, got home. I drank like 3 or 4 root beers with the pizza.
Bruh.
And I ate a bunch of pizza with the root beers. Within like an hour, my stomach had like distended out so far. I thought I was going to die. I really thought I was going to, I honestly told my mom right after she told me that if I don't stop moving, because I couldn't find a place to like get comfortable. She's like, if you don't stop like squirming around and making noises, I'm going to take you to the emergency room. And I said, no, I'm about to ask you to take me because that's how painful this is. I take responsibility, right? But I also think that, again, I think like the whole cheat meal and what do you eat post show, it's so glorified that people tend to really go overboard, and it's not something that we talk about enough.
I agree though, because when I first got into it and I was able, I guess, to have my first one or whatever, it's like, oh, I get to finally eat something. And then you follow people who, like, of course, as an amateur, you're following pros who may post this stuff, and you don't even have any real context as to why they're eating it, because there is a science behind that too, which a lot of people, they're not privy to that information. So yeah, it became like, I even glorified it for like a year or two, bro. It was like, yeah, I get to eat this, and it's just like, nah, it's a method to it. And even like post show, like, yeah, you probably shouldn't indulge like that. You probably should have a meal or two, and then you should get back on whatever your program is. But yeah, it got to the point where I needed to actually stop glorifying it. And because influence, impact, a lot of people are going to think they can do the same things as you until they figure out why you're doing it. So until I can actually reach people and be like, hey, I'm only eating this because of XYZ. My coach told me to eat this because of XYZ. It's not, it may give me a mental break from the diet, but there's other purposes to this meal.
And everybody's threshold is different. Look at DeJuan Freeman. Bruh. That dude can eat like 17 PDX cookies and he's still going to look pretty peeled. because his body can handle it. Okay. So, like, whereas the next person, they eat one and their abs are gone.
I'm gonna tell y'all straight up, if y'all followed the one, I kid you not. Was this last week? He was at In-N-Out, and I looked, I was like, bruh. And he was like, yeah, man, coach's orders. I was just like, all right, man. I almost jumped through the screen, bro. I'm not gonna lie. I almost jumped through the screen.
But I mean, that's the thing. People don't get that. It's like, number one, like what you just said. I mean, how many times have you posted, I mean, I know that I've posted like an In-N-Out burger or, a Rice Krispie treat for a pre-workout or something. And I get a client who is overweight and is like, do I get that? And I'm like,
no.
Do you really think that you should have that? When you look at yourself, like, and then this is going to sound so mean and arrogant, and I don't mean it like this, but like, when you look in the mirror, do you see what I see when I look in the mirror? Because if you look in the mirror and see what I see when I look in the mirror, then maybe we can have a conversation about that. Maybe we can have a conversation about you having the things that I'm going to eat. Right. But if you look in the mirror and you don't see what I see when I look in the mirror, then it's probably not the right question you should be asking. But a lot of people, they don't think of it that way. And it's, again, as a coach, going back to that healthy balance of like, you got to have a healthy balance in terms of like,
it is real,
like how real and raw you are with people. But, at the same time, it's like, man, like, you wonder like where people, get the thought process to look at it like that,
because they want to actually look like you. This is what I conjured up. It's okay. They're chasing the body that people they admire, or even their coach that they have. So they assume that, okay, if he eats that and looks like that, I can eat that and look like that. And that's the mental mix-up right there. That's negative number one. We will never look alike. Why? We have two different sets of genetics. We have an ancestry line that's way different. Like, we will never look alike. No matter what, you have to eat what's going to change your body. And honestly, that may never be In-N-Out. It just may never not be, and you have
100%.
to be okay with that.
Yep.
So
I feel like you had a question you were going to ask a second ago, and I before you jump to that, I got a quick, like a very, very, very short story about what you just said. I had a client a while back, probably like two years ago. She was obese, and listen, again, most of my clients are lifestyle. Like, I work with mostly lifestyle clients. I have a few competitors, right? I think I have like 6 competitors right now that are like in Austin. So, but anyways, this client, she was obese, and she knew somebody that actual mutual person. And this guy that she knew, he had just became a fitness coach, had just started his business at the time. Really big with flexible dieting, really big on, if it fits your macros, things like that. And I used to be big with the whole if it fits your macros. That was kind of where my start came from. That's where my business name came from. I was really big with that. And there is a lifestyle there that people can adopt, and it does work for some people. The big difference between this guy and this girl, though, because she was looking at him like, well, how come I can't eat what he does? Like, I see him eating all this stuff. He's always eating French toast, and he's always eating pancakes and, Sour Patch Kids and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, hard conversation. I mean, I know this is going to sound harsh, but like, when you look in the mirror, do you think he sees what you see, or do you think he sees something very different than what you see? And she's like, ouch. And I'm like, well, I mean, let's talk about the elephant in the room. No pun intended. Didn't mean it like that, but like, let's be realistic. Like,
right.
Where are you in your journey, and where is he in his journey? Right? Stop comparing yourself to somebody else That dude is in book number 2 of chapter 7. You're in chapter 1 of book 1. You can't even compare to him. You're 270 pounds plus, and you're 5'2". He's 6'2", and he's 185 pounds. So you guys are totally different body types. Number 2, he's a male. He has testosterone running through his body. You are not a male. You don't have a bunch of testosterone in your body. You've had children. You've had chronic dysfunction, gut dysfunction, lifestyle dysfunction. You've been eating unhealthy for years. You can't expect to just adopt the same protocol that he's doing and think it's going to work. And so, I think a lot of people, they see what somebody's doing, whether it be in the gym. I mean, we talked about this as well, you and I, when we worked out together at that global photo shoot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just from a training aspect, right? When we were talking about training and I was like, dude, let's give me fuller reps here. Give me fuller reps.
Yep.
Right? Genetically, you're so gifted. So your movements can have a little bit more less perfection.
Got you.
Me, I got to be perfect. To get your results, I got to be perfect. But you don't got to be. But what if you did do it perfect?
Mm-hmm.
And that's my point. You know what I mean? You can't, somebody that's watching you and watching me, they might want to take your word for it because of the way you look. But if you train perfect, your results are going to be 10 times better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you get these people that watch, guys like Andre, guys like Corey Morris, and they take after these guys. They want to pick pieces out of them because why? Because the way they look, because of how great they look, what they're able to look like on stage, what they're able to accomplish. But you take those guys and you add perfection to their movements, and the game is going to change. We have to look at things from the aspect of what's gonna help me get to where I want to be in the best possible way.
Mm.
So, sorry, I'm ranting.
Nah, that was I'm pretty sure it was a definite tough conversation to have. But again, that conversation is what's going to have the long lasting impact if they receive it in a way to do so. And
yeah, I mean, it's a hard conversation, and not a lot of people can handle that. And I get that. I understand it. I've always looked at it from the aspect of being as real as possible to somebody, even if it's, the truth hurts sometimes, man. It is what it is. And I think, going back to even one of the original questions that you asked me, why does my mind go to the place that it does? Well, the reason is because I'm okay with being realistic with myself and honest with myself. I'm good with that. You know what I mean? I know who I am. I know what I bring to the table, and I know what I have to do if I want to reach a certain level. I can't half-ass anything. Some guys that are genetically gifted, they can half-ass stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There are people that are like that. They can half-ass things. Dude, the last show that I won, I ate ice cream every single day. Every day. I also learned how to incorporate it into my training and into my diet. I'm not saying I recommend it, not saying that it's the thing you should do.
But that worked for you.
The last show that I ever won, I wanted to prove to the masses that an if it fits your macros protocol could be implemented and you could still look amazing on stage and win a show.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that, right? So doesn't necessarily work for everybody, but I also had to really work hard during that prep too. It wasn't that I didn't work hard, So, everybody's different, you know what I mean? And everybody's genetic potential is different, but some of us have to work a little bit harder than the next people, and that's okay. I think you just have to, again, be realistic and honest with yourself. And I'm okay with that fact. Like that's something that's never bothered me. I always looked at that as like kind of my edge, like that to me is like what gave me the chip on my shoulder. And so like I thrived in that. Whereas some people might look at that as like, maybe a negative. I don't know.
That's relative too. It's all about your perspective and how you decide to approach that. And that's dope for you to approach it like that, because that aspect of loan, like for example, if I'm chasing whoever and they tell me, yeah, man, I've been at this for 15 years. I don't have no goal in stopping no time soon, and I'm in it for 5. My goal would be, how do I close the gap? And the best way to do that is put my head down and work. I'm not going to compare myself to them like, oh man, I ain't going to never catch them. They look like this, I look like that. What's the point in that? They probably train this way, I train the other way. They eat this, I eat that. It's all going to be different. I can't like, hey, what are you doing? How much is your cardio? And then they tell me, oh yeah, I'm doing 2 hours of cardio a day. All right, let me go do 2 hours. Now, his 2 hours may actually be conducive to his body. Mine may make me deplete everything. So it's no, you have to do what works for you. Now, Brandon just said he was eating ice cream every day before that one show, and it worked for him. My job is to not get off the show and go start chugging ice cream just because he did. I know I can do. No, first of all, me and ice cream do not get along dairy wise. If you know, it's not happening. So I may touch ice cream once a year. That's it. So nah, man, you're right about that, bro. But what I was going to ask you before, this 2-part question before we get out of here. How important is mental health to you, and why do you feel like it's not talked about as much within our community?
So, number one, I was just talking to I was going over a consultation yesterday about this, and the day before. My just in my coaching business, right? I mean, that's all I do, right? All I do is coach. I mean, 24/7. That's what I do. And what I've found that my business has really evolved into is I'm more of a mentor than anything. I'm more of a mentor than anything. I'm a mentor that gives you a nutrition program and a training protocol. I'm a mindset coach that gives you fitness advice. That's what my coaching has evolved into, and that's why, like, when I have people that reach out to me and we start talking about things and we start getting into things, like, they think that it's just going to be a nutrition plan and a fitness protocol. And they don't realize like how much of the mindset part of things we're going to cover and we're going to touch on a weekly basis. And the thing of it is not even like, I'm not handing them an outline of like mindset stuff. I'm going off of specifically how they communicate with me. I read them based on how they communicate with me. And the way they communicate with me, I pick up on things. I've been doing this for so long now that I feel like it's interesting because it's not, like I said, it's not like I hand them a packet they get a packet of information, don't get me wrong, but they don't get like a mindset packet where there's like a list of things that we're going to talk about their mindset on a weekly basis. I basically read them based on how they communicate with me and what they share with me in their check-ins. And then we deep dive into their mindset. The reason that it's so important is because I know that if I can get through to them into their mind and I can get their mind right, their body's going to follow. One of my closest friends years ago passed away. He was one of my wrestling coaches. And And he used to tell us all the time, he's like, dude, your mind is going to go way before your body does. Big thing in wrestling practice was about like pushing yourself, push yourself. You got to really push your mind, because your body can go a lot further than you think it can. That's why I love bodybuilding so much. That's why the cutting process is so much fun. That's why it takes so much like that's why, like, for me, like, approaching my prep as like an MMA fight and having that like aggression and that anger built in to that. That's why it's always something I've thrived in, because to me, it's not, yes, I'm coming to take your head off, but it's not even about that when I'm training. It's about like, it's like a battle with myself, within myself, to push myself. And so, I'm sitting in the sauna and I'm dying and I'm super thirsty and I'm sweating my tail off, dude. And it's just like, it's brutal, right? Just got done training. Now I got to do an hour cardio, and I'm sitting in the sauna and I'm like, man, I just want to go home. I just want to eat. I just want to drink water. And I'm killing myself to just, killing myself for this prep. And I take a lot of like gratitude in that process. But I know that if I can push through that, if I'm pushing through this one hard thing, that it's going to build me to be able to be stronger into the next hard thing. When we go through things that are really difficult in life, it's really cool to look back and be like, dude, I made it through that. Like, look at what life used to be like. Look at that hard thing that I just got past, and I made it, And so I know that if I can get people to look at things from a perspective of positivity, that they can do hard things, that life really isn't that hard, even though it is hard, but it's not. You know what I mean? Like, we all got to figure out our own way. But if I can get your mind right, you're going to find success in this plan. This plan is going to get real easy if we can get your mind to do what it's supposed to do. I feel like you asked Chiron the same question, right? About, why do we not talk about it? Fear, bro. Well, I don't know about the women, because I know women are a lot more emotionally attached, right? Women are a lot more emotional than men. And so, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Women are just very
with their emotions.
Emotionally intelligent is what I mean, right? Women are typically, very intuitive to their emotions, and men are not. We're typically like, we stay away from that. We don't want to admit that we're nervous or we're scared or like, what does this do to me if I lose? How many times you see somebody type on their bio, not their bio, on a post after a show, like, things didn't go as planned, but I'm happy with the package, blah, 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 blah.
The blanket statement.
Yeah, we know it's bullshit. That's just a bullshit statement. You didn't say, like, you say what you really mean.
Okay.
Say what you really mean. And I just feel like guys are scared to admit their true feelings. You know what I mean? I feel like that's the thing. I feel like a lot of guys are afraid to say what they want to say,
Here's what I'll say to that, though. To me anyway, a lot of what we do is it's mental. Like the food, that we get to eat every 3-4 hours, whatever your coach tells you. Water, drink this. Whatever else you're doing, do what your coach tells you, right? But the day bodybuilding doesn't stop, or life doesn't stop because you're in bodybuilding. In fact, more stuff may happen because you're in a prep.
Absolutely.
So how are you handling those things? So when we all want to win and you lose, how are you internally handling that? Like, I didn't handle the loss that I had on my daughter's birthday well. I did not. I didn't like nothing about it. I'm not gonna go on a post and make a blanket statement like, "Oh, it just wasn't my time. Judges didn't give me any look," like whatever. Like that's not what I'm gonna put, because that's not how I feel. But whatever I do post, if it is my true feelings, you have your audience who's gonna read it. So I think when you say fear, I think it's the reciprocation of whatever you post. So whatever you put out there, something's going to come back to you, whether people agree with it or not. That's why you get the blanket statement, because you get blanket responses.
It's also
Next time.
It's egos. To me, when I say fear, I'm kind of leaning on like the ego side of things, right? Guys are afraid of, being honest, and the way what they're, like you said, what the response from others are going to be, what people are going to think about you. Let's talk about for a second, and this isn't to like call him out or anything like that whatsoever, but let's talk about for a second the situation with Corey Morris and
Got you.
Nick Trigili, right? That whole situation. Why did Corey reach out and tell him he's going to put his hands on him? I mean, like, let's be honest, right? I don't know Corey, and I don't have a problem with Corey, right?
Right.
Corey is phenomenal. Like, I'm not talking bad about him, but did Nick's statement about what Corey was doing in the squat rack, was it false? Was it incorrect?
He has to be honest regarding that.
I don't think it was incorrect. Corey's form on his squat wasn't very good. It wasn't. And that's just being straight up. Right. But it's not to question his integrity. It's not to question his character or question how good of a competitor he is. The dude is phenomenal. He's one of the best bodybuilders in men's physique today. Okay. Period. And on top of that, he's better in men's physique than Nick ever was in bodybuilding. Nick's claim to fame that he was a, Mr. USA's, former Mr. USA's. And again, I'm not talking bad about him either. Both of them. I mean, Nick Trigili looked amazing back then as well. And he looks good now with what he's doing currently. So it's not to talk bad, but the point is like, why did Corey get so upset and result to making threats?
Right.
The question on his character, his ego was brought to light, right? He was embarrassed, right? And so guys don't talk about like their true feelings about like what they feel out of, in my opinion, fear of like being uncovered, being, like exposed, right?
You feel like we're not good in that vulnerable space, because that is a high sense of vulnerability to be in. I feel
like a lot of guys are, man. I mean, listen, dude, for the longest time, we all have things that we're triggered on, right? Think of it like this. We all have our own insecurities. We all have our own things that like we don't want to be exposed. Think about like whenever you're taking a selfie in the gym. You're going to take a selfie in the gym in the right spot with the right lighting, in the same pose that makes you look the best. If somebody's going to take a picture of you, you want to be standing in the same angle. Look at Andre Ferguson every time he takes a photo with a friend or a fan. It's the exact same pose every single time. Not talking bad about Andre either, but it's the exact same pose every single time. Why is that? Because he looks good in that particular pose. It's always him hanging on the dude's left shoulder, and he's always got the arm up like this, and he's always like this because he's showing off how big his arm is. Dude, it's the same pose every single time. We don't want to be vulnerable. We want people to perceive us in the light that we want to be perceived in.
Well, this is the reason why I created the podcast. I mean, we covered a lot on your side as far as, stuff you went through, the gut protocol and, your mentality and stuff like that. And I try to create an atmosphere and environment where there is no such thing as vulnerability. I tell people all the time, like, this is just gonna be like literally me and you talking in the backyard, literally. And that's the environment I try to create, because if you're comfortable, you're not gonna feel away when you're explaining your story or you're telling me about certain things that may have happened or whatever the case is. And these are the things I wanted your fans who will watch this to hear, because you may typically get questions that, hey, what are you eating? Hey, what are you doing to get this? And what are you doing? And honestly, that's irrelevant at this point, because
100%.
right now I probably don't even want to get out of bed, or it's 5 a.m. and I got to go do this cardio, but I got other stuff that I need to take care of, and my brain is just not ready for the Stairmaster right now, or whatever the case is. We're all normal. And what I'll say to that is, it's okay to feel vulnerable. It's okay to express your feelings, especially as men. Like, all these things are okay.
Yep.
It's okay to, like, man, this prep is just it's killing me. Like, I don't know. Like, I got 4 weeks, but I mean, I'm gonna push, but right now I'm just not myself. That is okay.
Yep.
It is perfectly okay. So yeah, there's a lot of ego that goes into that, because I'm supposed to portray this image of me being strong, a warrior. Nothing bothers me. But in actuality, like, whatever actions you display, we can read between the lines. So yeah, there's a lot of ego in that. And I agree. Like, I have my MFT as far as my master's degree, and it took me a while to kind of step outside of my own ego to go get my own therapy. The cliche, a therapist needs a therapist. Yeah, I was avoiding that for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
So
get it.
yeah, you're right.
No, I mean, I mean, I feel like it's a normal thing. I don't want to make it sound like it's abnormal for anybody to, get their feelings hurt or have themselves be embarrassed over a comment. I mean, that to me, when you break down the Corey Morris thing, um, to me, that was, I mean, he seems like a very hard dude, right? Like, a very tough skin kind of guy, but clearly his feelings were hurt, right? I mean, what Nick said about him really upset him and bothered him, right? And but I don't know if you'd ask him if his feelings were hurt, if he would say that his feelings were hurt. That might sound weak for him to say. I don't know. I don't know him, so I don't know what his reaction would be. But my perception is that he wouldn't want to admit that.
Got you.
And so, and I think that's why he responded the way that he did. So, but I can understand why. I get it. You know what I mean? Like, I totally understand why he was upset. Because, like, in his way, he's kind of like, I'm sick of these dudes, these keyboard warriors, these guys that would never say this to my face are now saying this like this. I get it. You know what I mean? Like, I in a way can't blame him for feeling the way that he felt. Dude, if I had $100 for, maybe I should say a dime. If I had a dime for any time somebody, if I had a dime for every time somebody said, you skip leg day on selfies that I've posted, I'd be a millionaire, dude. It's happened so many different times. And, over time, like, I've really worked my legs, and I really appreciate where my legs are at now. You know what I mean? But back in the day, I was always dealing with different leg injuries, and yeah, I would skip leg day because my legs were constantly injured. And so, unfortunately, wasn't able to train them, and I didn't really know how to train them back in the day. So, like, that's probably why I was getting injured all the time. But I would get the same comments, right? And it would be frustrating to me. It would hurt my feelings. It would upset me. It would piss me off. And I'd want to come through the screen and, wring people's neck and things like that. Of course, like, somebody's questioning who you are. You have somebody who, like, looks like they skip every day at the gym. And they're like, oh, you skip leg day. And you're like, dude, do you even go to the gym ever? Have you ever walked into a gym before? Like, who are you to comment on that? You know what I mean? So again, it questions, like, it questions your ego. It questions your credibility. It questions you, like, who you are as a competitor, and we take it personal. you know?
Yeah.
And we have to learn how to not allow certain things like that to control us, because anything that allows you to get like that, where you lose control, that thing controls you. And
Mm.
a lot of guys don't look at it like, they don't think about things like that. They don't maybe it's because they don't have people in their corner that help them see things from that perspective. I don't know. You know what I mean? But to me, I think that's why a lot of guys, they don't, maybe that's why, you know, um, mental health isn't really talked about as much. You know what I mean? And
Well, it's this is the last thing I'll say about like that. It's mental health in itself is fragile, right?
mhm, mhm,
Like there's so many different aspects to one's mental health that where it could take you one way, break you, or take you another way. It just all depends on your response to whatever's going on. So if that's already fragile,
mhm.
we ourselves don't want to feel or be perceived as fragile. Anything that's perceived as fragile can be interpreted as easily broken. You know,
Yep,
when you get a package in the mail, it says, "Hey, don't move around too much, fragile," like whatever the case is. We're
mhm,
the box
yep,
with the tape around us. So all that tape is just our our cover up.
mhm.
We don't know what's really in there. It's just what's in here is fragile. So I'm not gonna react the way you think I should, instead of just saying, or two things, because now when I get comments, it's an immediate block. I don't have time to respond to nothing. It's an
No, and I
immediate block, delete.
yep,
But also what I may say is that I may tell my wife, like, man, like this dude just said this or da 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 da. And then she, like, one time she asked me, she was like, well, how do you feel about that? Oh, I feel mad. No, you're mad because he posted on your account. But how do you feel? Oh shit. Well, I mean, when you
mhm.
put it that way, like I feel hurt.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. You feel
so
hurt,
there you
right?
go.
And on top of that, none of us want to admit that we're fragile. None of us want to admit that that you. I mean, we're IFBB pros. Okay, people look at us and they think elite. They think you've reached a level that I can't, or that I would love to get to one day, whatever, right? And so there's this perception that we are built different, that we're a machine, we're
Mhm.
strong and whatever. And to admit that we go through emotions and we deal with struggles on a daily basis, you know, we all have our hard times. And when we're emotionally compromised, like, none of us want to admit that.
Man.
So
Yeah,
it's
that's a hard
again,
thing to admit, man.
it's that vulnerability of, like, just being a human being. You know what I mean? Like, and that's why, like, to me nowadays, like, I look at things so differently, in the sense that, like, pro amateur doesn't matter. We're humans at the end of the day, and we're not immune to anything. Like, anything is on the table. So, anything can affect you. And so you have to be able to have the presence of mind to, you know, be realistic about your situation, be honest about your situation, but also be optimistic that, really and truly, if you want anything in this world, you can go get it. You just have to be willing to put the work in, and that's it. Like, it really isn't any more complicated than that.
Nah, it's not. And we make it more complicated by focusing on a bunch of other stuff outside of just the work. So
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
how I say that. My guy Brandon, man, dope conversation, bro. Dope. I learned even in this conversation how to pretty much move forward in certain aspects just based off how you go about dealing with adversities. And I would like to think that I've grown in dealing with certain adversities when it comes to bodybuilding, but I feel a whole lot more prepared after this conversation. So I appreciate you for that, brother.
See, I now I know what you're really doing with these things, man. You're just trying to take little bits and pieces so you can just become the most mentally strong dude up there. I know what you're doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love it.
So it's funny though, you mentioned that. The purpose, and I'll tell you this, the whole thing that started this was after the 2022 Olympia. So if everyone recalls that Olympia, Banks beat Brandon, right?
Mhm.
And it was supposedly close. It was all this controversy and, you know, so on and so forth. Whether you believe it or not, that's your business. I don't really care about that. We had a new Olympian champion. So shout out to him. And what ended up happening was like a lot of the competitors started going live. And people was just asking, it could be five again. I use the 5 o'clock in the morning story because I went on Banks Live. I was doing cardio, and everybody in his live was like, "Hey, what did you do to get to the Olympia? What did you eating? What is your protocol? What is this? What and that?" And I literally had a conversation with Banks, and he's heavy on his kids, bro, like heavy, and that's a beautiful thing. But it's 5 o'clock in the morning, and that's all y'all care about. Like, there's so many things out there about how he shouldn't have won, and he should have never did this, and just all this negativity. Did anyone stop to ask, like, bro, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And that's what that bothered me. So immediately I was like, you know what? I want to talk about the mental side of what we go through, the ups, as far as there's mental stuff. Like when we win our pro card, we're excited. When we lose a show, we're not excited. What happens all in between that? And that's what started this podcast, bro. So I said, I want my way to get in the door, but I don't want to be in the room, if that makes sense. I just want to open the door, like, all right, what's going on in here? All right, no, I don't want to walk through there. All right, what's the next door? Maybe I'm interviewing a wellness competitor. Like, how are you like dealing with these things? Because I may not be the best at these things, but it opens the door to your fans to actually see, like, dang, Brandon's like really, his insight is so dope. Like, man, he goes through a lot, and he just keeps going. Like, life is beautiful to him. Or you may, man, I deal with depression all the time, anxiety. I interviewed was it figure? Yeah, I interviewed a figure girl who says she has to literally breathe in a bag before she gets on stage. The stage fright is enabling
Wow.
or disabling, excuse me. And it's just like, whoa. So meeting everyone from different walks of life, yeah, I'm taking mental notes for sure.
Definitely.
Because
Absolutely.
it's just like, okay, I know for when it's time for me to go, I can recall damn near every episode in my head, bro. And I kid you not, I have 40 minutes of cardio. I had 30 and I did an extra 10 last night. And around the 20-minute mark, I was like, oh, my legs, I'm about to get off and da 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 da. And then I'll recall back to an episode I did with Jason when he was talking about him and Jeremy doing the same show, Jason Hume. And he was like, I know if Jeremy's doing this, I have to be doing this. I know we're doing the same show. That's my boy, but he has the same mentality. I want to win. And he's always looking crazy. So I would go back to something like that. And I'm like, yo, it's not gonna be no cupcakes in Utah when I go. It's not gonna be any cupcakes in muscle contests. So the fact that I'm complaining about being on here for 20 minutes, what does that even look like?
Yeah.
I go back to episodes all the time, bro. So
I mean,
it's helping me.
it's brilliant. But I mean, what you're doing is awesome, man, because again, you know, like you said about Aaron's post, his live, everybody's asking, like, what'd you eat? What's your training look like? Bro, what PEDs are you taking? And all this stuff. Like, dude, none of that stuff matters.
Nope.
Don't get me wrong. Absolutely, the diet matters, your sleep, your training, your PEDs, all those things play a role. But dude, if your mind isn't there, dude, all that other stuff is you. You ever hear people talk about like my body just knows when it's time to cut?
Yep.
No, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. But your mind told it. Your mind's telling your body that it's time to cut. Your mind is the one that's controlling everything.
Mm-hmm.
You have programmed your mind to talk to everything, and your mind knows that it's time to cut. Your mind knows that it's 6 weeks out and it's go time. And so therefore your body went into overdrive because your mind told it to. Whether that happened consciously or subconsciously, your mind is the one that controlled it. Your body didn't just know. It's your mind. And people don't understand how powerful the mind is, dude. Like, you can talk yourself into believing that, manifestation is real.
Mm-hmm.
And you can manifest an IFBB Pro card. You can manifest a 6-figure life. You can manifest the house of your dreams, and you can manifest cancer. Which one do you want to manifest? It's up to you. It literally, that's up to you. You can either manifest good shit or you can manifest bad shit.
Man, good shit, brother. Damn, my guy. This one's gonna drop in 2 parts. I'm gonna break this one up for you. So you're gonna get a 2-parter in here.
We got a long one.
I love it.
I'm sorry, I will apologize because I'm a wordy guy. I talk a lot.
No, I kid you. That ain't got nothing to do with nothing, because there's episodes where I have to pull teeth. So these are the ones where I'm like, I'm excited to do. Before I get you out of here, shout out your brand, man. Shout out everything, clothing, shout it out.
So the business, this is so real quick. I'm obviously I'm a fitness coach, right? I'm the only guy on my team, right? So I don't have other coaches. That'll come at some point. I've got a few people in mind, but the business is called Relentless Revolution. And basically I kind of talked about, like I mentioned before, about how I came up with the name. Growing up in Alaska, in the bodybuilding community out there, was always surrounded around, eating very, very strict food, and, chicken and rice, broccoli, oats, egg whites, plain food. And for me, it was, when I was coming up, it was like, the food doesn't have to be horrible. We can still enjoy our food. And so, I really dove into the if it fits your macros side of things. And at the time, me and some of the other guys on my team, we were the only ones that were really pushing that whole lifestyle back then. And so we were causing this revolution in Alaska. Like the promoters were pissed off at us. They were making posts about us, like passive aggressive posts. It was really ugly back then. But the thing of it is, we had caused such a movement that it was like this relentless revolution, bro. And that's just how I came up with the name. So, but I created a lifestyle brand out of it, because I just didn't like, the reason I called it this name is because I didn't want it to be like Brandon Fitness or whatever, you know what I mean? Because, like, how could I ever brand that into something later on? I don't feel like people are going to want to wear a shirt that has my name on it. So,
right.
So I created more of a lifestyle brand, just something that anybody could wear. We came out with these shirts recently. We have another shirt that's that also says Relentless Revolution, but it's a little bit more of a sport tech shirt. We came out with some hats as well. We have the Shut Up and Work hat. This is a saying that I've been saying for over a decade. And it's one of those things where, I came up with that for a couple different reasons. One, because people like to come up to you in the gym and try to talk to you, and you're just like, read the hat, bro. But then also, like, it's like, for me, I'm again, back to the mindset part of things. Like, I can't stand when I hear people talk about things they're going to do. Just shut up and work, dude. Let your work speak for you. You don't need to say anything about what you're going to do. Most people that say they're going to do this and they say they're going to do that, those people typically, like the statistics, those people don't follow through. It's way cooler if you just put the work in and then show up. It's way cooler, because when you put the work in and all of a sudden people are like, whoa, dude, where did you come from? And you're like, well, I've just been putting in work. Shut up and work. So, we did these, like, kind of like a spin-off of the new era. What are those? The 47 hats.
Oh yeah, 47
hats where they have like the 47 on the side. So I kind of stole the idea. But we also came out with some flat bill snapbacks as well. We have this logo and a real big on the deal here. So yeah, I mean, that's the business. Relentlessrevolution.net is the website.
Yes, y'all follow. It'll be down at the bottom.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll follow all that. So my guy, man, appreciate you so much, brother, man. I learned a lot for sure, man.
No, man, I'm like I said, like I told you yesterday, man, I'm really grateful. I love what you're doing. I think talking about the mindset of things is so big. People don't realize how important that piece is to this whole journey, and not just fitness, but life. I mean, when I have clients come to me, the goal is always for them to improve their life. It's not just to improve their fitness or their health. It's to improve their life. You know, I want people to come and work with me so I can help them make them a better person.
Absolutely.
It all starts in the mental first, man. Like if we can't get that right first, then we're in trouble, you know? So that's the area we always hit first.
Exactly.
Appreciate what you're doing, and I'm grateful to be here. So thank you.
Oh, you already know, man. We'll see y'all in the next one. Peace. Yes.
Later, guys.
Today's episode is brought to you by Chulaware, the largest provider of board shorts, bodybuilding trunks, and briefs in the world. Visit their IG at Chula Styles or their website, teamchulafitness.com.